Welcome back to TechNet Radio. Community Corner is back, and a couple of familiar names jumpstart the series with a great discussion around deduplication solutions from Veeam and Windows Server 2012. Listen in as Matt Hester and Product Strategy Specialist from Veeam, Chris Henley, discuss ways in which you can reduce storage space, increase backup capabilities, as well as improve your management systems. Matt, the mic is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Matt Hester. I'm a Senior IT Pro Evangelist with Microsoft, and welcome back to Community Corner and our TechNet radio show. For those of you who have watched the show in the past, first off, thank you for tuning in again. And no, I am not a new John Weston. Actually, kind of a fun story. John Weston hired me before he came in and became an evangelist like myself. But I'm kind of back in my roots and working with this, so I'll be working with Community Corner. So if you have a topic that you want to hear or you want to hop on the show and talk more about technology or how you're using it in the community, simply just email away. My email will be at the end of the show. But today we got a fun Community Corner because not only do I get to talk to one of my best friends and co-author of one of the best-selling books in the whole wide world, Windows Server 2008 R2 Instant Reference Guide, but I also get to talk about what he's doing in his new role. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce Chris Henley. Chris, why don't you go ahead and tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Hey, thanks, Matt, and welcome to all of you. My name is Chris Henley, IT Pro Evangelist, although no longer with Microsoft. Spent the better part of 8 years working with Matt, John, the rest of that team, and wanted a new experience. I guess almost a year ago, started looking. And on LinkedIn, of all places, I saw a little notice that said jobs you might be interested in, and it said Microsoft Evangelist. And I thought, that's really interesting. They're already posting my job, and I haven't even found a new one yet. And I clicked on it, and it was actually for Veeam. They wanted someone who does evangelism. Matt, you and I have talked about this at length. This idea of working with the IT community and performing what we now call evangelism isn't something that's limited to a specific company or corporation. It's not about a specific product. It really is about building relationships. And for me, I've had a great experience working with Veeam for the past 9 months now. I get to focus in a little bit more detail around Windows Server, around virtualization, and then around a couple of products that Veeam builds for the virtualization space. So I'm having a great time and happy to be back working with you again.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about it is we almost try to get rid of the poor guy, and he keeps coming back. The great thing about this, and Chris, maybe you can talk about this. We're talking about the community, and as you well know, we work with the IT Pro community. Really, has it changed much? I mean, or is it still the same kind of folks you're talking about, just kind of with a different slant on our Microsoft technologies?
You know, it's a good question. I get to talk to a lot of the exact same people. In fact, I go to a lot of the same events. Next week, I'm doing Windows Connections in Las Vegas. And the anticipation is that the audience that's there, they're IT professionals. They work with Windows Server. They work with Windows clients. They work with an extended set of software on top of those server and clients. And that kind of forms, I guess, what you might call the center of the IT universe. Everything seems to gravitate around the server operating system and around the client operating system. And so for me, working with Veeam, I still do user groups. I still do webcasts. I do a lot of work with online community sites like Spiceworks, for example, Redmond Magazine, Windows IT Pro Magazine. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. Those of you that have been out on the Twitter community, you've probably seen my at Nerdy Like That handle and, of course, the at Veeam stuff. It's the same audience. They want the same things. We still do the same things. I still spend the vast majority of my time working with Windows Server 2012, which is great because, Matt, you know more than anyone, I love that product. That's a part of who I am.
Well, and I think that's what's nice is you get to leverage that experience that you got here while you're here with us and then actually see how some real-world things are being applied to this. So when we talk about the Veeam community and the IT Pro community that I support, they're pretty much the same folks, which is what I was kind of hoping would be the case in the answer. So what kind of exciting things are you talking about with Veeam today? I mean, what are some of the hot topics when you get in front of an audience and they know you work for Veeam? I know when I'm in front of an audience with Microsoft, is either Windows Server 2012 or Windows 8 are pretty much the topics. What are the hot topics for you inside of Veeam when people want to hear you talk, or what are some of your favorite little hidden gems?
So yesterday, Veeam released Veeam Backup and Replication version 6.5. And the thing that I constantly hear from the audience is, yeah, I know you guys make a backup product for virtualization. Does it support Hyper-V? Absolutely does. Does it support VMware? Absolutely does. Can I use it in conjunction with management suites like System Center? Absolutely can. Then the questions start to delve, and we start to ask about things like compression, about deduplication. Saving disk space is a hot topic. We generally will start to run down the path of, does it work on Windows Server 2012? The answer is yes, as of yesterday. In fact, I think Veeam is the first in the industry to provide that direct support. The questions kind of delve from there. Everybody wants to know, how do I use it with Exchange? What do I do if I have a SQL environment? And those are the kind of things that I tend to spend my time focused on. So maybe we can chat some of those today, because I think one of the most compelling things that's going out right now is data deduplication in Windows Server 2012. I mean, you got to give it to Microsoft Research. They have taken a feature that all of us have heard of before in deduplication, but it was really pretty hard to get a good quality dedupe solution because it was all third-party based and a lot of work. Now it's built into Windows Server 2012, and you can get some pretty sick results using that feature. So yeah, maybe it's something we can chat about today.
Well, and well, I might as well chat about it now, because I think it's one of the great things. Currently, me and my team, or I should say in the month of October, we have delivered 31 days of Windows Server 2012, and you actually were kind enough to write one of the posts on that very topic around deduplication. And when we think about traditional file shares, when we're talking about deduplication, sometimes you're thinking, well, Matt, if I don't have the space to share the files, why would I even worry about this? But what happens, the problem becomes very unique and compounded when you start backing up files into those same kind of volumes. Now, all of a sudden, you're talking about double the space of what you're using, and it could be even more depending on what you're throwing at that backup set and where you're leveraging it. So I want you to just kind of talk briefly about what we do from a backup for your technologies inside of Veeam, and then we'll come back in and we'll talk about kind of what 2012 does in addition to that, and kind of where they come into play.
Sure. So when Veeam backs up a virtual machine, and that backup might be a single virtual machine, or it might be a group of virtual machines, you get to choose how you're going to structure that backup job. And I'll throw in the plug. There's a reason I work for Veeam. They make the best backup solution, bar none. I know there's a lot of them out there in the marketplace. This is my career we're talking about. I can't just jump to whoever. So the innovation is spectacular. I'll let you go out, try it, use it. In brief, when we make a backup of a virtual machine or a set of virtual machines, we create a backup job. We save everything associated with the VM. So you're talking about the VHD or the VHDX now file, the binaries, the XML configuration files, any snapshots associated with the VM. Everything is compiled into this backup. Then we add compression, and we also add deduplication. Now, Veeam's deduplication is different than the Windows Server 2012 deduplication. So Veeam's deduplication actually runs on a job-by-job basis. And we do really, really well. I mean, we can get on backups on virtual machines 70, sometimes even larger % recovery on a virtual machine backup job. So we do well. Now, what gets interesting is that when someone like Microsoft comes along and says, hey, we're going to add a deduplication functionality into the operating system, they add that as a volume-based deduplication. So if we were to take, and we actually did this as a test at Veeam, we took a 250 gig job, we back it up, drop it to disk. Now with just Veeam's deduplication, remember it's job-based, so each job deduplicates the individual job and then drops it to disk. So with Veeam's deduplication, we can run from about 250 gigs down to, I don't know, maybe the low hundreds, 107 I think is what we ended up with. Well, when we move from Veeam's deduplication with that job, I take that 107 and then I drop it onto the Windows Server 2012 volume with dedupe enabled on it, and we drop down from around 100 to 7. Wait, that is not a mistake.
7? You didn't mean 70, right? You meant 70, right?
Yes, 7. 7, no zero.
So the net of it was you went from 250 gig all the way down to 7 gig. with that backup set. So that's one area when you think about working with our technologies together, and this is where when you have a strong partner like Veeam and a great partner like Veeam and some of the things that are there, and this is why I was glad we could have Chris on the show, because I know a lot of you might be using that backup software. Imagine the disk savings that we have, and now we're talking about volumes that are not taking up as much space but still have that same level of functionality. Now, Chris, one of the things I want to talk to you quick about, because when you say best backup in industry, I always kind of get my hackles up a little bit because I do work for Microsoft, and we talk about Data Protection Manager and how it can back up, and we can back up. I know you all do other workloads other than Microsoft software. Kind of talk about a little bit of where you guys might compare, or how do you work together with DPM, if at all?
No, that's a great question. And I don't want you to think when I say we make the best backup software that I think anything less of DPM. In fact, I love DPM. Remember, Veeam does one type of backup only, and that's virtualization. We only do virtualization. Your physical machines, your physical servers, if you want to do the traditional physical disk backup, you need a tool like DPM. And in fact, if you're using DPM in conjunction with System Center, which if you have System Center and you're not using DPM, it kind of baffles my mind. Use DPM. One of the great sequences or stories, I guess, that I can tell you around DPM. So let's say we're talking partnership with Veeam. One of the things Veeam does not do is we do not write to tape. It seems very clear to me when I'm looking forward in the way our industry runs, tape-based archives just aren't an effective solution. When we start talking about the numbers of terabytes and even exabytes of data that we're looking at in storage, tape is just not a great option for us.
You're run out of tape on the tape.
Yeah, you're going to run out of tape on your tapes. The reliability on them is not that good. Now, I realize there's a lot of folks out there who are required to make tape-based archives because that's the way their business has always done it. If you're using Veeam to back up your virtual machines, you're going to have something to put that virtual machine backup onto an archive tape, and a tool like DPM already does that.
So it could take your backup that you make with virtualization and move it to tape very easily.
So there is this kind of, play between the two products where there are certainly things that Veeam will do in a virtualization backup scenario that DPM doesn't. And there are also things, and important things, DPM will do that Veeam doesn't.
Well, and I think the big distinguisher there is that we also get other products in the Microsoft portfolio. Hyper-V is one of them, but we also get SharePoint, we get SQL, we get Exchange, all with that. And I was just kind of curious on your perspective of that, because I think when we look at backup products in the industry, I think people think of they're a dime a dozen. I think you already gave a great differentiator, right? We go from 250 gig just to 100 gig. By your product alone, that's over 60% savings. And I saw the same screencast. And then you added Windows Server 2012 in the mix. You go to 7 gig. That's unprecedented, really. I don't see anybody doing that kind of things. But normally, when people look at backups and the IT pros that talk about backups, kind of the commodity, right? Everybody should be able to back up the files. But they generally make decisions, and I want to get your perspective because you've seen this now for a little bit of time. Do people really look at more that restoration method? Because that seems to be the kind of the crux. I don't care how you get it back on tape, but how am I going to get back and how fast do I get it back? Do you see that conversation more and more?
All the time. In fact, I honestly think backup doesn't matter, but you are right. You've got to be able to make a quality backup in a short backup window. The real kind of differentiator is what happens when it's time to restore. So I'll give you the Veeam, what I call the drop-dead gorgeous piece here. In a Veeam environment, the thing that makes Veeam drop-dead gorgeous is that I can take my virtual machine, take the backup file that I made, the backup repository that's storing it. I can find that backup file. I can say, I want that virtual machine back online right now. It's called Instant VM Recovery, and we will actually mount the VM in the backup file on the backup storage and mount that workload and make it operational. Generally speaking, you're up and running in less than 2 minutes.
Less than 2 minutes. That's
less than
amazing
2
stuff.
Now, at that point, you get your opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to now migrate from the backup storage to my production storage, and I'm going to run a full restoration. The key is your workload is running while you do that. So we're not waiting, hours or heaven forbid days for recovery to work.
You're with like, multiple gigs of hard drives, right? You're talking about like a SQL server that's in a virtualized environment could be 20, 30 gig easy if that's a production box. So you're talking less than 2 minutes to kind of get a system like that up and running.
The other thing that we get all the time, this is your other drop-dead gorgeous piece, Exchange. Everyone runs applications inside of virtual machines, right? The reason virtual machines are so sexy is not because I get to consolidate on my servers. That's cool and everything. But the real sexy part is I can now run Exchange inside a virtual machine, manage, maintain, and operate its resources by, Hyper-V Manager or System Center Virtual Machine Manager. I can allocate resources like RAM to that machine, and I can work with it sort of on the fly, and it's awesome. So what happens when we run into a failure there? Well, one of the things that was released yesterday, and this is a free tool, anybody can use it, called Veeam Explorer for Exchange. And what it does is allows you to take the backup of your Exchange, go in and use the Explorer tool, just like you would use Windows Explorer, where you've got a structure of file system hierarchy on the left side, only in this case, it's your Exchange hierarchy. So all of your mailboxes and all of their associated components. So their calendars, their public folders, everything associated with them. Now I can go in and peruse when a user calls me and says, hey, I just deleted a mail that had an important attachment. Can I get it back? You can now go, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And again, as fast as you can find it, it literally is a matter of right-clicking on the file that they want back and saying, put it back on the Exchange server. Or if you want, you could resend it to them as a message or save it out as a PDF file. It's nice to be able to use those kind of innovative concepts to make the Microsoft story, the Veeam story, and most important, I think, it's really the customer story, right? It makes their life better and easier. So,
well, and we're not even talking, you're not just talking about, let's be very clear, we're talking about an Exchange that's been virtualized on Hyper-V, and that you've actually moved that server into a backup scenario. So we've backed it up with Veeam software, and your software can actually reach into the backup tape, reach into the virtual system on that backup tape, and then reach into the actual individual mailbox on that virtual system, on that backup tape inside that virtual system. Or not backup tape, backup.
I was going to say, you say tape, but we don't
I
do
say tape.
We do disc.
That's how I roll. I'm old school like that. I like tape,
Yep, I do know.
I mean, I think I made my hair out of tape, as a matter of fact. It's just nice and black. Just don't get a magnet near it. Although if I rub it real quick, I can shock, the neighborhood dog. It's really good. Anyway, so when we I scare children, all right? It's not my fault, people. These types of things. So when we talk into it, what are, when we look at Veeam and backup, what are some of the other great things that you guys do? Because I know one of the other products that you work with, it was close to my heart for a while and still is when we talk about operation management and we talk about System Center Operations Manager specifically. You guys do something that I think even better than VMware does, and that's monitor VMware systems. Why don't you talk briefly about that? I mean, not to knock VMware, but your stuff is really, really cool when you combine it with System Center to manage that kind of day-to-day operations of not only Hyper-V, and as you all would expect, right? System Center Operations Manager and all of his System Center products works incredibly well with Microsoft Hyper-V. That's what it's designed to do. But what I don't think a lot of people understand is that System Center can be made to use incredibly well with non-Microsoft hypervisors, VMware in particular, and you all have an excellent little offering there that I think the community, hopefully, if they haven't seen, need to kind of know a little bit about.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you start talking about running virtualized environments, there are a lot of folks out there that are running VMware. As much as we wish they would run Hyper-V, they've chosen VMware as a platform, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, you've got to do monitoring and management of your virtualized environments. Just like a physical environment, if you choose not to do any kind of monitoring and management, it's going to come back to bite you, right? Yeah. So System Center Operations Manager, bar none, best management framework out there. There's no question. So with that said, it makes total sense to go out and find a way to use System Center Operations Manager as the management framework and then find a way to get the information from your VMware environment so that you get that same monitoring and management capability with VMware that you have with Hyper-V. So Veeam makes something called the Veeam Management Pack for VMware. It's specifically designed to run as a management pack inside of System Center Operations Manager. It works amazingly well on System Center 2012, but also works on previous editions also. So you got a little bit of flexibility there. Now for me, my best experience with that product comes out of Windows Server 2012. I just think it's drop dead gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
We actually write all of our products, and this is an important thing about Veeam. All the products that we've talked about today, the backup and replication suite, the Veeam Explorer for Exchange tool, a tool called Veeam Zip, the Veeam Management Pack for VMware, we work directly with the manufacturers. We don't come up with a new way to do something. So with Microsoft, for example, Microsoft for several years now has recommended the use of the Volume Shadow Copy Service, or VSS process, as the method for interaction so that we get quality backup of operating systems that are running Windows in a virtualized environment. So it makes no sense to try and reinvent that wheel. Instead, Veeam's development team actually programs directly to the VSS process. It makes everything simple, easy, and straightforward. When it comes to VMware, VMware has an API set that they make available and they recommend that people use. And Veeam developers actually write direct to that API set. So the long and short of it is there's a component in that API set called SimSmash. It's CIM, not SIM. That component will actually allow us to extract data from the ESX or ESXi host machines and then report that back to the management pack that's running inside of Operations Manager. Now what that does is gives you, if you're the administrator, literally an end-to-end view of everything going on with your virtual machines that are running in the VMware environment inside your System Center management framework. And when I say everything, I mean down to the individual rating of a single fan on your ESX host. Every piece of processor, memory, network, and disk, all of the virtual machines, the internal operating systems, and internal applications to those OSs. It's second to none. Once you use it, people generally say, where has this been all of my life and why didn't I use it before? It's a fantastic tool. I get way too excited about them because I think once you start using them, you realize, man, there's incredible value to be had in a tool set like that. And again, the message is pretty clear. Veeam in conjunction with a Microsoft product running on side of the Microsoft platform makes a very powerful solution.
Yeah, and that's one of the things why I'm glad we could get you on the show today is that oftentimes when we talk about our technologies are great, in of them themselves, but sometimes when you want to take them to that fantastic or that drop-dead gorgeous level, as you phrase, is that sometimes customers like ourselves own our products and don't always know all the different components that they own that they can work with, and they own your products at Veeam, and how can they get the most of it? Or maybe they're looking for alternative methods to back up and work with us, especially in the virtualized world that we live in. More and more customers are virtualizing. So I was glad we could get you on today, Chris, and talk a little bit about how third parties can enhance the experience, because as you well know, Windows Server 2012 is a game changer. It really is changing not only how we look at a core infrastructure server and management, but folks, I know if you're running VMware out there, that's great. They're a great technology, but I'm here to tell you Windows Server 2012 is caught up in a big way, and in some ways exceeded some of the things that we've done in the past. So take a look at Hyper-V down the road. But if you have to do things and monitor those things, by all means, I'm an IT pro just like you. Make sure you're using the tools that help you be successful at your job so that when something does go wrong or you're trying to find out something about the environment, you have that tool in your bat belt, per se, to be able to figure out what's happening. So really, folks, it's sometimes we have to add on to our technologies to really make them sing. And I'll tell you, I haven't found many partners better than Veeam. And one of my favorite things of when we look at Veeam is you do support PowerShell, right? You better say yes, otherwise I'm taking that whole statement back.
Not only do you support it, but I'm taking it all back.
I'm taking it all back. You said no PowerShell, I'm like, we're done.
One of the most compelling demonstrations that I've seen actually makes use of PowerShell in conjunction with System Center and specifically System Center Orchestrator. Now, imagine System Center Operations Manager. You're monitoring your VMware environment. You've got all kinds of alerts set up so that in the event of a failure, you know exactly what's going on. Well, I want to take it to the next step. I don't care that it failed. Well, I do care, but what I really want to do is recover it, right? I mean,
I'm playing golf. I don't care. The server's crashing. That's it. I'm out of here. I got 18 to hit. Dude.
Well, if I'm on the 7th hole and my server crashes, what I want to happen is I want Service Manager inside of System Center Operations Manager to see the alert, then I want to be able to have written a PowerShell script that goes out, finds my Veeam backup, runs instant VM recovery, and brings the whole thing back online within 2 minutes.
I'll see, now that's the scenario I like, because
That's-
Service Manager under the covers uses
PowerShell. Yeah, there you go. So if
So
you want to see that, there's actually a demo. It's up on our blog. You can go and watch exactly how that's done. Stephen Duckert put it together, and it's exactly what you said. It integrates the two technologies together and uses them in a way that makes my life better.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's making our lives better is working with it. So, Chris, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with us here at Community Corner. And thank you all for tuning in. And you all have a great day.